Hi there, I'm Dragan Petrovski, and I know the name is a tongue breaker because I'm from Macedonia. I do show notes for Pete, and during the show notes for today's episode, I learned about Alexandre Franchi. He's a great director, and above all, he's a great guy. You gotta watch his latest movie, Happy Face. The link for the movie is in the show notes. I would like to ask you to go to the breakitdownshow.com and support us through the PayPal link. All of the money goes right back into the show. Also, don't forget to support Save the Brave. And now, without further ado, our guest, Alexandre Franchi.
Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay Moore.
This is Greg Proops.
This is Jordan Harbinger.
This is Dexter from The Offspring.
This is Nathan
This is
East.
Sebastian Younger.
This is Rick Marotta.
This is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick Gillette.
This is Andy Summers.
Hey, this is Skunk Baxter.
This is Gabby Reese.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
This is Alexandre Franchi, and you're watching The Break It Down Show.
And now, The Break It Down Show with John Leon Guerrero and Pete A. Turner.
Hey, man, I appreciate you coming on. I'm fascinated by this movie that you created. Just for the audience in general, I'm going to put the links up here in the show so you can check it out. But you made a movie called Happy Face. Please tell us about it.
Well, I'm glad to be here, Pete, and glad you liked it. So, oh my God, Happy Face. Happy Face is the story of Stan, a 19-year-old teenager, I guess, who can't cope with his mom's illness and the effect it has on her face. And so he deforms his face with bandages, and he hides in a workshop for disfigured people as a form of therapy, as a form of self-therapy, misguided therapy, and he gets discovered. And then the whole question is like, what the hell is he doing there? And complications ensue.
And complications ensue. That's great. Who wrote this movie?
We co-wrote it with my co-writer and partner, ER's here, Joël Bourjoli and myself. We co-wrote it, and it was based on an autobiographical episode of when I was a teenager and my mom was sick.
I got you. And then you got actors who have, I don't know, what's the proper way to say this? They have malformed faces. What's the respectful way to say it?
The politically correct term is facial differences, or some people say disfigurement.
Right. Okay, so you have folks that have unique faces, and you purposely brought them in because you didn't want to do. Well, I mean, like, why would you make that decision? Are there a lot of actors that have the disfigurement thing or the malformed thing?
First of all, I always say, makeup was too expensive, and that's a big joke. I think morally, it was kind of impossible for me to take, quote unquote, normal looking people, I mean, faces without blemishes, and put makeup on. I think the idea is I wanted to have the real McCoy, basically, and not doing blackface. It's obvious. Well, in this case, for me, it was obvious not to put makeup on actors to pretend to be somebody else, although acting is about that. So I wanted to search for people who had a facial difference, and there were some performers, some people who had experience performing, whether it was through music, through acting, through public speaking, and others that had no acting background, no acting experience. And one of these performers is ER Ruiz, who wrote the song of the film.
Yeah, I love that song. ER, I was just listening to the trailer because I love that song that you created. You're in the movie. When did you get involved in this project, and what was that like?
Okay, cool. I got into the process when I think Alex had someone casted, and he was unable to follow through, and I think he had to drop out. And then when I auditioned, I think I did it one way, and then Alex was like, do it another way, or be myself. And then I got a chance to freestyle in front of him while I was auditioning, and it was just a really cool process because it was unorthodox in a way, where it kind of made me more open and suggestive to the ideas and sharing my feelings and how I felt about my scars. It was pretty cool, but then at the same time, a little strange and weird. Yeah.
I remember that audition. Just a little parentheses. It's true. We were casting and we were trying to we couldn't find people in Montreal, so we looked at New York, LA, all over. And ER was auditioning. They brought him in, and I had already found another guy in Montreal, so closer to where I'm living in Canada, to shoot, who was supposed to make the role and I guess fit better what we had written. And I remember ER did his audition, and ER, you played the tough guy because you played tough guys in movies, and
all the time. Yeah.
I know, and it was the tropes we see in North American films, right? But then when he was speaking to me, like now, I found this soft-spoken guy, very mellow, very chill, and I was like, wait a minute, that's like, okay, no, I like that. And then he freestyled. I asked him to freestyle on the theme of beauty and appearance and himself, and it was just great. So I was like, okay, we're going to find a way to put you in the movie, even if it's a small part. And then the other guy dropped out, and it was like, okay, so it's going to be a big part. It's going to be like a big part, So I mean, it's great. I mean, I'm glad like we became friends, and then in the middle of the film, like in the middle of the rehearsal, and we're doing like fittings. I was like, oh man, maybe you should do a song for this. You should rap on the characters. And he was in my apartment in Montreal, and I was checking locations and photos. And he went into the other room, I remember, and he was like writing it up. He took a nap. He wrote another verse, and then he kind of read it. And I have that tape. I have the iPhone tape of that. And it was it was the song. And we were shooting the film. And late at night when we finished at 11, I have friends who have a studio, sound studio, wanted to help out for free, and we'd go there, we'd get some burgers, smoke a joint and go there, and he would do his thing at midnight, and he have to wake up at 5 to go shoot the next day. So we built the song like that. I mean, he built the song, and it was great.
Yeah, it's catchy.
No, but
go ahead, man.
Thanks. Oh, I was saying we built it because the whole idea was 90s, so I was listening to like 90s hip hop and Rakim specifically. And then when we got into the studio, I think I was rapping in one way, and then Alex was like, you were like directing me.
I was being my producer. I was being a hip hop producer.
Yeah, he was like, no, bring that funk, just bring something different. What are you feeling? And it came out that way. It was really cool. It was a fun experience to be able to like create something that wasn't even really a part of it, and it was just kind of improvised on the spot in that moment during filming. Yeah,
those are some of the best times. And I could hear the 90s influence. I liked it. There's a certain busyness to the background of that 90s rap, and you nailed that down. I wanted to ask you, Alex, you've done shorts, and then it looks like you've done another feature, but you take a good bit of time between these projects. What are you doing, or why do you have the long gaps, and then are you looking at picking up the pace in terms of features?
That's a good point, and it hurts that you bring it up, Pete. Because it hits my insecurities and aging and not being able to do one's art. My first feature film, The Wild Hunt, was really an ordeal to make financially and emotionally. And then after that, I feel sick. I got hit with cancer myself, and that put me out for a number of years. And then I make a living directing TV commercials, so I worked hard to basically, make money to pay, the debts and everything and get my life back in order. And so it took me a while. I mean, financially, mechanically, if you will, also mentally to get back on track. But also, I think what took a while was that Happy Face, because it's such a story that dealt with my mom's own battle with cancer when I was a teenager and my relationship with her. It was kind of like I was so close to it that I did not have perspective. And so the screenplay went through years and years of development. And thank God Joël Bourjoli, my co-writer, was there to keep the faith, keep encouraging me and keep the focus. And so I think it took a long time because of that, because the subject was too personal. I wanted to give it justice and I didn't want to screw it up. And I ended up like second guessing myself for a long time. Yeah.
When you look artistically,
I do want to pick up the pace. Sorry, I do want to pick up the pace.
No,
I'm picking up the pace right now.
Well, but I mean, life happens, right? Like right now, we've got a global pandemic. There's directors all over the place that would love to pick up the pace, but sometimes you can't. Cancer comes or whatever. So that's why I asked the questions, because you can see that you're getting work. It's just, there's these gaps between your features. And then when you decide to come out and do this, I know a lot of directors who do something else in the directing discipline to pay the bills. That's not what they want to do, but it's what they do to be able to do this. And then so every now and then, if the timing works out, you get to take your shot and do a feature film. But Happy Face seems like such a challenging decision to make. It seems like an artistic decision, not a challenging decision. When you make this decision about Happy Face to tell this story inspired by your mom's life, are you like, this is a gamble, this might be hard to sell? Or are you like, I don't give a damn about that, this is an important story? How do you think through that process? Because you could just go make, a rom-com and be like, here you go, Lifetime movies, like done. Why this movie? It seems challenging.
That's a very astute point, Pete, because I remember having a conversation with my agent in LA, and he said, look, he understood. He goes, you're making this movie because it's a personal movie. It was more not even artistic. It was like a visceral, cathartic, linked to my psychological well-being. That's the reason I went into cinema. Is when my mom died, when she was sick, I took an art course as a means to escape, and I fell in love with it. So it was, and he said, he says, unless it's a real, like a super duper home run, it's a movie about cancer, disfigurement, like it's going to be a hard sell. And he was right. And I knew that, but sometimes when you're a filmmaker, particularly in countries where the state funds cinema, like Canada, France, Europe, you kind of tend to forget the market.
Okay.
Because that they could finance your own personal navel-gazing film, which is what Happy Face is in a way. I don't want to shoot it down, but I mean, that's what it was. It was something I did for myself first, and then it became something else as I met the actors. I'm certainly paying the price for it career-wise because it was not a commercial endeavor, but on a personal level, it changed my life. On the human interacting with others level, it changed my life. It got me to, meet the cast. It got me to become less superficial with other people. It got me to teach at-risk youth, teach Indigenous youth in remote communities about beauty, appearance, bullying. Got me to do some talks, apply for some research projects in the university. Like, it really opened up like a different sphere of life where you have these social workers who call me up and say, oh, do you want to come and talk to our kids? Because we like your style. You're kind of brutally honest, and it's kind of like, no taboos. And so humanly, it opened a lot of doors. Commercially, no. I'm working on the commercial parts now. Now I'm gearing up for some genre films and some badass stuff that's going to hit the mark.
Aren't we all working on it?
Yeah, exactly.
ER in there. What is it like for an actor or director who's like, I need someone who's terrifying? In this case, you're trying to not lean on makeup. How did you deal with that as a director when you're trying to, I want to be respectful when I talk to ER or someone else who's got some kind of disfigurement. I don't want to draw attention to it, but when it's on your face, it is right there. How do you deal with that? And how do you care for the well-being of the actors on this movie?
Okay. Yeah, for sure. You got to have, when you're a director with actors, disfigured or facially different or not, you have to have a level of trust, and you have to have no taboos and be able to talk about everything and not have ego. So in this case, it was a film about that, about the face. So I did a lot of explaining what my situation was, what my relationship with my mom and her illness and the loss of her beauty, how ashamed I was, how it affected me. I kind of opened up a lot about my life story and encouraged them to do the same. And we did a lot of workshops where we talked about that. And we did acting exercises where we actually practiced insulting each other, or we practiced writing down everything that people have said in our lives that was mean, for instance, and then reading it out to another person as if, I write down all the insults somebody has told me, and I read them out to you and bellow them out to you so that you feel the brunt of what I've endured, and vice versa. So we did a lot of that for 2, 3, 4 days. And after those days, man, there was no taboo. We could speak about anything. And I remember David Roche, the older guy who plays Otis, the older fellow who plays Otis. I was talking to him at one point. He was my confidant, and I was telling him, I was having trouble getting funding for this film because people were telling me, funding organizations, they're like, well, you're a good-looking guy, you're an average-looking guy. You're not disfigured. You're going to be exploiting those people. You're not representing those people. There's a kind of exploitation. And I was like, okay. And I told that to the actors, and they were like, well, dude, exploit us. Exploit away. We just want to be in the movie. And I was like, all right. So we got past that.
Okay.
But my crew, did not go through that process of rehearsals. So I remember when we first started shooting, I'd be on the set, have the big camera, I'd be filming David, David Roche, Otis, the old guy with all his veins, and his eyes are not aligned. And I'd say, Dave, could you keep your head on this side? Because I can't pull the focus on your eyes, because your eyes are like, your face is all wonky, man. Like, we can't focus. And I remember my cinematographer, Claudine Sauvé, who's a very sensitive and talented woman, she pulled me aside. She goes, Alex, how are you talking to them? Like, be careful. You've got to be careful. And I was like, no, but they don't want to be treated as fragile little porcelain objects. That's the idea. It's not, because they're different, it doesn't mean they're victims or angels or fragiles. They're
Am I
dicks
better?
and idiots and petty, just like you and I. And they're great too. So and then the crew got used to it. And we started talking about that. And then we became a family.
It just, from the outside looking in, as if I'm the camera person, I'm uncomfortable because I don't know that you've done that work to check in with them. Let me check in with ER real quick. ER, you're really heavily backlit. Here I am producing the show here. We'll get there. And ER, if it doesn't work out because of Wi-Fi, we'll work out another episode too. So just, if it works, it works. If not, we'll get back to it. I want to ask another question of you, Alex. So as you're dealing with this, how in the heck did you know?
Mind you, I didn't throw it at them. I asked them.
Of course.
And I had an acting coach with us who had worked with sex workers, homeless people, like people that are non-trained. So we kind of it was a mix of reading some articles, talking to acting coaches, and I was like, I need to find out their experience as much as I can. And I can't walk around eggshells. You can't direct a film walking on eggshells. I mean, that's not the way I deal with people too, and my friends either. So it's kind of like, no, we gotta break the ice. And I told them, if I ask a question and I'm off or I sound insensitive, do tell. I'll readjust. I'll apologize. And so, it was. We just created the bubble to have this kind of discourse because it was a movie about that. So the script was there, we changed the whole script, but the script was there. There were things in the script that they reacted to. There were things in the script that were linked to characters they were playing, but that did not necessarily represent well. So I was like, okay, well, what's your experience with this? And then we rewrote it. So it turned out to be pretty seamless. Finding the people was harder sometimes when dealing with associations because you have people protecting them. It's the people that are not facially different that are protective of the term, of how we approach it. But once I got this group of actors and non-actors, and I felt that they really had a genuine desire to express themselves and to surmount their fears, I was like, all right, so then if you want to go all the way, we're gonna hold hands and we're gonna do it. We're just gonna go. If you screw up, it's no big deal. I'm not going to be pissed off at you. We're just going to do it again. We're just going to find another way. There was no. It turned out to be fun, it turned out to be kind of emotional. People were crying on set. Yeah, the scenes were crying. The crew was crying. The camera operator had tears in his eyes. That was the idea, right? That's the film. But ultimately, at night we'd go have drinks, and it was just okay. It was just fun.
Yeah, and I want to get back to the emotive part because you do get a bonus in the back end, but let's spend some time in the director's chair as you go through auditions. Okay, I've got this, disfigurement and I'm going to try out for this movie, but I suck. Or it's not what you need, or, there's something there, but the look is there. Like, how do you balance the look and the capacity of the actor? Like, I can direct this person, I can get there. Talk about those decisions just because you have some kind of disfigurement on your face or some kind of facial difference doesn't mean that you're going to work for the movie.
No. I don't want to compliment you too much, Pete, but these are really good questions because I haven't been asked those, and they're great because I remember going through that because you see people, facially different people in movies, they'll just be like so they'll play the archetypal disfigured person, the archetypal disabled person. And no, I needed to have the magic. What I look for is the magic. Okay. That some people, like I remember Cindy Nicholson, who plays Buck, who passed away last summer, unfortunately. She plays the woman with all the pimples and the warts on her face. She couldn't memorize dialogue. And she cried all the time because she spoke about her mom, which was her true life story. So we really mirrored the story of her character on her life. And but she had such an interesting face. And when she smiled or when she cried, she lit up the screen, and she just had this kind of like 70s rock outfit.
Right.
And that's it. Her, I was like, okay, it's going to be hard to work with her because she can't memorize lines. But whenever she speaks or she says something, it pops.
Right.
So, that was the case. Some actors could memorize lines, but like me, I don't have 3 years of training in me. So, it'll feel stilted. So I knew, okay, we're just going to have to do a lot of rehearsals and kind of improv it and then make it flow in their own words, and it'll get there. Other people, like ER is a natural. Give him a couple of lines, he'll say them in his own way. They work fine. It's good, like we don't need to overact or overdo anything. So I guess I had to, and by the way, I love doing this. I love working with people that have different backgrounds, whether it's acting, non-acting, or singers, or different performers, because for me, it's all about the magic. It's all about like their inner, I don't want to say demon or daemon in the Greek sense, their inner genius, their inner kind of like spirit. I love to take that and extrapolate it and magnify it. And sometimes it's amazing, and sometimes it's monstrous, like the inner monster. I used to tell David Roche, Otis, we need to bring out the inner monster, dude. And so that used to be our joke on the film. So that's what I love to do. So if I could sense that the person was open, and some people are closed off to that, and that's fine. But if I could sense that the person was open to going and fetch that creature, then yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the little bits, I didn't watch the whole movie, but the little bits I saw, I saw you get a real impact from the faces because of not just the dialogue, but just when you look at ER's face, it causes a reaction in you, and if you as a director know that palette of colors, you can now accentuate that with dialogue, with lighting, with music, whatever it is. And really, it's like a super powerful way to create emotion and create affect in your movie, so that you're just like forced to deal with this emotion that's coming from this person just by their simple presence.
Yeah, but there's a caveat to that.
Okay.
And I'm going to chastise you for not having seen the film too long. I mean, not having seen longer of the film.
Yeah.
But the caveat is after 6 or 7, 8 minutes, you get used to the damn face.
Okay.
And so if it's just a face, after a while, it works for a short film or a scene. But like after a while, there's got to be more than that to a movie. So I needed to make sure I could find people where I could have an arc with them. And when you see it, and I do hope hope to get an email from you when you will. Yeah. No, but you'll see. Like for me, it was to make sure with Joel, actually, the co-writer, who's really good with structure, was to make sure we got an arc, and that they were able to hit those notes, whatever notes, to form an arc of character. Because honestly enough, the experience I've had with audiences is after 7 or 8 minutes, after 1 or 2 workshops, people are like, "Yeah, man, they're used to the face."
Yeah. And
so the effect you say disappear, it wears off. Basically, the novelty wears off.
Okay.
Or the horror, quote unquote, or the unease wears off.
Well, and would it be fair to say that you're able to transform those colors on that emotional palette to something that's deeper, richer, more pure? I mean, instead of just being this shock kind of emotion, you're able to then take someone and make them laugh, make them, and humanize something that would be a monster otherwise.
Like, I understand the question given the way we look at it from the distance, right. But honestly, at the time of doing the film, no, it wasn't that. It was just like, this is the character, and it was just navigating what felt like good acting and what felt forced and what felt genuine and what felt emotional and pushing. For me, I love pushing the grotesque, and I don't mean grotesque by saying something ugly or hideous. I mean grotesque in the sense of a conflict of opposing forces within the person, humor and the tragic, laughing and crying because something dreadful happens and you find humor in it. And so that source of tension for me, it was all about getting that in the characters.
And again, going back to, because the faces are so unique, and this is really kind of like the hook for the movie, it seems like, is how do you work between like I need more acting from you, I need you to be less just you and more this. How do you guide people to do that in general? But in this case, because their faces are so present, how do you get that out of them?
Well, look, when you train with really, really skilled and experienced and talented actors, I mean, they know what to do and they roll on their own, and you develop a kind of a shorthand sometimes when you rehearse, they do something and you'll ask an experienced actress, what did you just do here? What were you thinking when you did that? So you kind of, as a director, this is the way I work. I try to understand what they do, what they're thinking about, just a little bit their process. So when we're on set and they're doing something, I know what's going on a little bit. And I'm like, you see what you did? You were thinking about this. Well, how about you add that your mom that you were thinking about did this to you? You kind of like, you enter their own little personal narrative and you add lines of code and you add lines of, you add nuances and like you get into their world. You don't say, they teach us that in film school. You don't say to an actor louder or more or less. Usually you say that to non-actors. So with the actors of Happy Faces and the non-actors, I did the same thing. When we were rehearsing, I was like, okay, well, I was filming them and I would show it to them and I would say, look, that felt right to me. What were you thinking? And first of all, I got them to get over the idea that what they were doing was bad. I would say, I'm the judge about that, so.
Yes.
And then it was trying to get that shorthand with them as well, albeit limited with the time we had and the experience of some. But to get a shorthand, I was like, okay, when you did that, you were thinking about your mom. All right, you did it. That was a bit too much. So then I would throw something, I would make them laugh, and just diffuse it. Well, I was like, or I tell another actor in some cases, well, how about when she does this, put a hand on her shoulder, and then he would do that. And then the person would like all of a sudden like become all emotional and react to it. So you kind of use different tricks, external tricks, like put a hand on the shoulder or imagine that I'm naked or I would take my shirt off and I would say something stupid so they would crack up. So you use like silly external tricks. Right. And then you use more sophisticated techniques like with skilled actors where you get into their narratives and you kind of like refine it with them. It's basically the same thing. A non-actor is a non-actor, and a trained actor is a trained actor. So you just have to use different little tools to play with that. The trick with Happy Faces, we had the range. We had like non-actors, experienced, no quote unquote normal actors. We had people that had performance skill. Others had acting experiences. Like we had the gamut of it. So it was trying to juggling what worked for every one of them. That was a bit of a thrill and a challenge. Yeah.
When you guys got in there, you've got this, group of characters. Which character demanded more camera time than you realized before you started?
You mean camera time or prep time or
you started, characters grow, they evolve, especially in a project like this where you're doing a lot of rewrites and everything. What character started to grow and demand more of the movie's time?
Hey, this is Pete A. Turner from Lions Rock Productions. We create podcasts around here. And if you, your brand, or your company want to figure out how to do a podcast, just talk to me. I'll give you the advice on the right gear, the best plan, and show you how to take a podcast that makes sense for you, that's sustainable, that's scalable, and fun. Hit me up at pete@breakitdownshow.com. Let me help. I want to hear about it.
Characters grow, they evolve, especially in a project like this where you're doing a lot of rewrites and everything. What character started to grow and demand more of the movie's time?
Look, we discovered things with all kinds of character. Like with David Roche, we discovered crazy things that he could pull off if given the right, like if after doing it like rehearsing it like an improv session, and then he would like let loose and get in touch with his inner monster. And so he was able to add dialogue and add verboseness to his performance. That worked. With some, we realized that less words worked as well or had very powerful impact. Like Alison Mitstoke, who plays Maggie, she was written to be an anthropologist, a scholar, like a university doctoral student. When we cast her, we realized that she was a model. She had played in small films in New York. And I was like, all right, well, I'll make her character a model. I'll mirror the character on her. And so her, it was more, even offset, she dressed really well. She was very classy. And I was like, okay, well, bring your clothes. She's sexy. You like dressing up in sexy clothes? Well, we're going to dress you up in sexy clothes. That's your character. Nice colors. So the wardrobe people had a blast with her.
And there you are with your shirt off, cracking jokes.
No, well, yeah, no, shirt off was with the guys. But so she her persona demanded a different kind of treatment. I think that was. I think no character. Some have more screen time, maybe because of dialogue. But I think when you see the whole thing, and you because it starts out with a group of people, and when the therapist discovers that one of them is an imposter, like half of the people kind of like leave the workshop because they say like this is bullshit. But there's a few diehards that stay, and that becomes the core group. And these 4 end up all having their arcs and resolution, like parallel to one another. And I think they have pretty much almost the same amount of screen time. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Yeah. Good. I mean, that's a great answer because movies evolve and everything. I read a book about Michael Landon and his artistry as a director because I was curious about how he approached things. And over the course of his long directorial life, he had certain tools, certain mechanisms, close-ups on hands to create emotions and transitions and all these kind of things. You've worked in the commercial world a lot. How has that impacted how you direct things? And then, like a commercial, I would think is a different setting on your production perfection dial. Where does your dial go when you're doing a movie in terms of production versus perfection?
Everything goes out to the shitter when I do a movie because, to tell you the truth, I co-produced them.
Yeah.
They're underfunded because they're weird little stories that, that are kind of like, it's true in commercials, you'll take a day to do 30 seconds for huge amounts of money and you'll redo something 20 times. In my films, it's weird. I think I have an allergic reaction. I do the exact opposite. I'll be like, yeah, let's do something. It's going to be like almost like super improv, loosey-goosey, no shot list, no storyboards. My crew, my DP is going to be like, what the hell? Because I've been co-writing, co-producing, directing, casting. So I wear too many hats. And then I forget to do my most important job, which is directing and mise en scène, which is a mistake I won't do again. I'll promise you that. And so, yeah, oddly enough, no, it's really not the same part of the brain. Like seriously, like it's more the inverse. The commercials I do, the ones that I'm good at, they're known for humor and characters that are a bit over the top, and it goes into like a little bit of crazy stuff and far-fetched, and there's crescendos, and that you see in my films. So that's my style. But I don't think the rigor of commercials I bring to the films because I don't have the time and the budget to do it. You know. Yeah. Like you end up with a diverse group of actors, some with no experiences, who are scared, some with experience, on a tight budget, shooting at night in a hospital, some with speech impediments, and you got like 8 pages of dialogue, and it talks about cancer and death. So you got to shoot like crazy, and you got to figure it out and make it work. Like the whole like minutia of commercial goes out the window. You just rehearse it a bunch of times, and you see what sticks, and you try to get the pieces. You're like, yeah, go. Yeah. We got to clear by 6 a.m. So more often than not, it's that, which is sad. Which the film suffers from that, but. No, my main focus in the film was to get the magic, get the tone, right? The continuity of tone and the continuity of emotional kind of... Yeah. Like I keep using the word magic, but there's no other word I have, like the kind of intensity of it. Yeah, you can. That was my main...
Yeah, when there's a magic moment and you're trying to capture as many of those as you can. You have to make compromises, though, and you don't always get the quality of what you want. What are those things that bug you where you're like, this bugs me, but there's nothing I can do about it because we don't have the budget or the time for it? I mean, is it continuity of shot quality? Is it audio? What are the things that you're like, I'm never satisfied with this aspect of my shoots?
Honestly, it's never audio because I make sure I have damn good audio because that's you can't screw with audio. Right. You have to get good audio. No, honestly, the thing that I would change would be my own preparation for mise en scène, for directing. The thing that I don't never have enough of is spending time with myself, storyboarding everything, and basically shooting the film on paper beforehand. That's really the thing that's been lacking in my work so far. I think it's because also the work is too ambitious for the budget. I tend to kind of like, I'm a producer and I should know better, but then yet I throw caution to the wind. I'm like, all right, guys, we're still going to do it, And so, yeah.
Is that a skill you need to master, though? Like, do you need to shrink your vision down and edit what you're doing so that you fit within that budget and you can nail that mark better? Or do you just like, damn, forget it, we always make it work?
No, I think I need to... excuse-moi, Louis, je suis dans une entrevue, là. I think I need to... Sorry. I think I need to master... By preparation, I think we're doing some construction work in the house. That's why. Yeah. I think I think with more preparation and focus, I'll be able to refine what I want to say and how I want to say it.
Yeah.
Because with less preparation, you tend to keep your options open, and then you go in all kinds of different directions. So I think I'll be able to narrow the vision down if I spend more time eliminating the wrong directions to pick one. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so. I want to make sure I mention the movie's called Happy Face. It's on Amazon. It's just a couple of bucks. Seriously, you guys, come on. Indie films, you got to support them. Listen to the passion in Alex's work, and you're going to see this on the screen. I have not watched the full movie yet, Alex, but I have watched a lot of it, and I just have to get back to watching it. I ran out of time.
For sure.
So
For sure.
watch it with me, and let's talk about it. And then, as always, everybody, please rate the film. I mean, this is what makes Alex's next project a lot easier to get off the ground. So please support him on Amazon. All right. Now that I said that, I wanted to ask, again, same kind of questions where you're a producer, you're a director. Every time you do a movie, maybe hopefully you're getting a little bit more money, and you're getting, I like to say, if you're gathering heads for all of the hats that you have, you can start taking hats off of your head and go, here, you're wearing the director of photography hat. Here, you're wearing, the gaffer hat, because you have to wear all of them. So which hat would you love to grow to get rid of? Like, what's the next big hat? You're like, I can't wait to get this one off my head and onto somebody else's so I can storyboard more.
I mean, look, I want to say, I mean, I wear the producing, the writer hat, the director's hat. I don't wear the gaffer, the cinematographer hat. No, we get pros for this. It's not, it's not like that small budget, but I think it would be the producing hat, really, because as much as I love the creative aspects of producing, I mean, it's a lot of work. It's a professional job. It's a skill set, and it's very demanding and time consuming. And so I would love to shed that hat, and that's my resolution for my next films is to find skilled producers that are more skilled than I am for all of my projects.
Right.
As for the writer's hat, I've always written my stories because I guess that's the auteur thing we do when we're French. But eventually, I've started seeing stories from friend writers or novelists that I really love and that I'd love to take a crack at without having written it. Just I think it would be liberating for me not to have like a story that's my baby.
Yeah.
That delves with my childhood or my angst or my fears or my wounds. It'd be just like something not autobiographical where I could just be like, all right, this is my take on this. I haven't done that. I mean, I haven't done TV. I haven't done movies of the week or episodic. So no, just my own films and the commercials pay the bills in the meantime.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, in the podcast production world, it's the same thing. Like, I'm desperate to get rid of some of these hats, like YouTube
sure.
SEO specialist, like, oh my God, please, can someone else do this for me? But there are things you have to do to show to that next level of producer, that next check writer that like, I get these things done. And it's a battle that we always have to fight because there are projects I would love to go out and do that would be incredible, but I got to find the money to do it. To find the money, I got to go make commercials in your case or whatever it is.
Yeah, we have to hustle.
Yes, exactly. So, okay, Happy Face is out. You got it on Amazon, so you got a chance to make a little bit of money there. You're getting the movie sold. That's always a good sign.
Exactly. Amazon, YouTube, iTunes, I think, all these providers.
It's commonly available, which is a to anybody outside, this is a pretty significant step because you've got to get it available. But then you also got to build an audience for your work and get the thing sold. So like today here, we're talking here, but what aspect of the selling of your movie do you want to try to improve? Because if there's no money, there ain't no next movie, right? So how do you get over the hump in terms of finding the next check or getting movies to light off and have enough of a successful run that the next check is easier to get to?
Yeah, I mean, look, we're blessed and we're cursed in Canada because we've got state funding for films. So we all compete, we all apply, and then films get funded based on the merit of the screenplay, but also based on certain demographics or, depending on the topics or who do you want to push, so it's a game in itself. It's the game of culture, state finance culture, which is amazing because it allows us to sometimes have some freedom to do cool stuff that's not market driven. the problem with that is we don't think of audience as much as our southern neighbors, you guys. We don't think of hustling on social media to get our audience out. It's a generational thing too. I'm in my 40s, so
Yeah.
I didn't grow up with the internet,
Right.
so I do it a little bit, but I'm not super skilled at it. So I think for me, it's going to make sure it's going to be making sure that my projects, like I said, I prep more, I focus more, and that some of them are small enough that I could do with a minimal cast and crew, minimal budget. Even if I have to go back to doing a short film, like that's a proof of concept or a particular story, standalone story. And I think with Happy Face and the Wild Hunt, my first feature, I have enough of a track record to be able to knock on doors.
Right.
To be able to say, hello, I've got this thing. It won't be like, oh my God, yeah, sure, let's go.
Yeah.
But it'll be all right. Let's take a look at your synopsis. Let's take a look at your one page. Let's take a look at your log line, at your little pitch book, and then we'll get back to you. So I have enough of a track record to do that.
Yeah.
And for me, that's enough to work with,
And you're I mean, to your credit, you are way far down the road in terms of what it takes to get to there. I mean, this is like, I'd like to do a short. That guy is so far back in the learning process. You're way up here when you're worried about these things. You're not worried about if you can put a movie in the can. You're not worried about getting audio right. You've got those. You know what those things are. You know how long a movie takes you to make, which is a substantial advantage over someone who's just getting started. What I guess
although I've noticed like young people today with the internet and the technology and the cameras, they really, I mean, they're fast learners. They read all about it, check all the videos, hang out with their friends, and they do stuff that gets into big festivals, that gets around. And so, it's not like you had 35 millimeter prints back in the day with the big cameras and the print, and it cost a fortune to get it developed. So, I guess I'm a step ahead, I suppose. But as a filmmaker, we never see that. We always think we're a step behind. So.
Yeah, well, and you are even as you're a step ahead, you're also a step behind at all times, right? The podcast version of the show that's coming out today are two very young movie makers, and it's as if they've never had a difficult moment in their life. And I'm not knocking them. They're like, yeah, we started talking and we thought we would make a full feature movie, and we took these classes in college, and so we knew how to do it. And I'd never produced a movie before, but Nicholas told me how to do it, and so I went out and did it. And I'm like, oh my God, like out of the mouth of babes. So it's doable, but man, it is like you said, you always got 1 foot behind you. I want to stop there. I want to come back I want to ask you about audience, because Calgary, Vancouver, Montreal, Ottawa, Toronto, all wildly different places. I mean, Canada from down south, our view is it's almost two countries, and you guys vote on this fairly regularly. Are you two countries or one country? How does that impact your filmmaking? I mean, not in terms of finance, but in terms of like audience when you consider it.
So sorry, ER was texting me, so we'll have to do something with ER some other time because his internet is bad.
Yeah.
But honestly, it's two worlds in cinema. Like for instance, my film got distributed in Quebec.
Yeah.
In the US.
Yeah.
But somehow it did not show in English Canada. And so
what do you make
honestly,
of that?
I think it's bullshit, but I make of it that maybe it wasn't successful enough or didn't hit a buzz enough at the big international festivals so that English Canada would then look at them. If you make a buzz at, TIFF, which is Toronto, but like the big festivals around the world, the English Canada will look at it. But as for Quebec, I mean, it depends. Honestly, it depends on the topic, the subject matter, the quality of the film. I mean, Happy Face is by no means a perfect film. It's a flawed film about flawed people by a flawed director. I mean, but it's great fun to watch. You know, it's an audience member in LA once, we were doing a test screening. At the end, said, not a test screening, it was a festival. The audience member says, "This is like The Breakfast Club meets Freaks." And I was like, yeah, I think it is. It is. It was kind of like, so honestly, Canada is two solitudes. as they used to say, certainly culturally in terms of films. And mind you, I lived in Vancouver and Toronto. I studied film in those cities. I have friends in those cities. But it's a completely different thing. I think the English film industry, the Canadian English film industry, is very, very much turned towards the US. You know, whereas in Quebec, we're turned towards the US, we're turned towards Europe, we're turned towards ourselves because we're an island of French people in the sea of Anglophones. And so I think that's what makes for its effervescence creatively.
Yeah.
So, cracking English Canada, like the saying goes, like the tacit saying goes, you don't try to crack the market in English Canada. You go for the States. And then if you're never a prophet in your own country. You know, you go for the States, and if you get a buzz there, all of a sudden they'll talk about you.
Preach it. Yes.
That's it. Amen.
Yeah, that is absolutely yeah. How about in your hometown? Are you a hit there? Or do you have to beg people to know that you actually do this for a living?
No, I'm not a hit. Look, I'm not a hit, but I'm not unknown. The sense is, you have to understand, I'm French, but I have a French accent. J'ai un accent de Paris. I have a French Parisian accent because my family immigrated from France.
Yeah.
And Quebec, it's a French Canadian. So it's like, let's say you're in Texas and you got a guy with a British accent.
Yeah.
So culturally, I'm a bit between two countries, and I grew up in an English part of town. So my films were always in English. And I'm in the French province, so I'm not helping myself with the market here.
Right.
And I make it about cancer and disfigurement. So, but my movie has been heard. Like all the producers in town have heard of the movie and they've heard great things about it, but they haven't seen it. And I said, oh, great. If you heard great things and you smile when I call you and you take my calls and you haven't seen the movie, I'm like, perfect. So no, I guess I have access to the film industry. I am part of that. But I'm not. It's not like I'm walking down the street and people are recognizing me like Denis Villeneuve or something. You know?
Yeah.
No, we're not there.
These are funny things, though. I mean, on the podcast side, and I'm not trying to equate us 100%, but one of the hurdles that we have to get over on the podcast side is like, is this legitimate? Are you just some kind of guy in your garage, and everything? And I'm like, no, motherfucker, I do this for a living. Like, I make a living doing this. And it's funny when you have to convince somebody. They're like, oh, I thought you were messing around. Like.
Yeah, and you're like, they're like, oh yeah, I know Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
They're like, all right, that's a podcast, and it's like same thing. It's like Joe Rogan, Denis Villeneuve,
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Oh, it's so funny. Hey, what are you working on now? What's coming up for you movie wise?
Well, two things actually. The most advanced one is called The Other, L'autre. It's in French. Okay. It's the sequel to Happy Face. It's actually the same character 20 years later. And it's basically my story with cancer. I had cancer 10 years ago and in the leg, in the bone. And they put me in a hospital room next to a guy that had been shot by street gangs in both of his legs. So there were two of us on morphine, barely conscious. Both our legs, both of us had our legs screwed up.
Yeah.
And after a couple of days, I started realizing that the doctors and nurses were mistaking him for me, giving him the wrong medication, giving me the wrong medication, calling us by the wrong names. And I realized that the bed numbers were inverted in the computer system because of some glitch.
Right.
And that he had been moved to my room because he was fearing for his life in another room that he was in because there were some people wounded there that were linked to the gangs that shot him. And it dawned on me, like, I got to get out of here because if not, they're going to come and finish him off and they're going to mistake me for him and I'm going to get shot or something. Right. And in my morphine delirium, I started really, really panicking and trying to get out of bed and do my physio. And anyway, my life was going like downhill. But that situation like jumpstarted me and being like, okay, I gotta get the fuck out of there. So it's a psychological thriller taking place in a hospital room based on that anecdote.
This is fantastic. I love it. So that's the sequel to this one.
Kind of. I mean, it's. I call it the second part of my cancer trilogy, which is not a very marketable term, but that's what I call it.
Yeah, nice log line. And then, is there a third one then? Like, and then you die or something, and it's like people looking back at your life, or what's the third part?
No. The third one is kind of a how-to manual for young boys on how to become a man, and not being a jerk. I mean, it's available for girls. It's going to be it's embryonic. It's going to be a mix of a documentary and fiction, but it's not. That's like far off in in the future. No, the other movie I'm working on, I'm developing it. I had some money to write it. Is a action horror film called One Flesh.
I like it. I like
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Action horror. And do you like
Yeah,
horror
yeah.
as a genre then? Is that like a sweet spot for you?
Yeah, but I'm not a big connoisseur of horror. I like the grotesque. I like the psychological horror. I like the dark parts of the human soul. It doesn't mean it has to be gore. It's the type of thing that's close to reality, and you're kind of like, oh my god, with dread.
Yeah.
You know, so I like films that are as close to reality as possible, and then something really horrific happens, and then it fills you with dread. That in that sense.
I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the French version of grotesque, you know, like more like that definition of the word as opposed to like the American English version of it.
Probably. Yeah, probably.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I've had you for about an hour. I'd love to. Do you want to ask me any questions, or should we just wrap this thing up?
Well, just tell me about the podcast a little bit. I break it down. I was like,
Yeah, it's well, so I was a combat spy, and I wanted to
combat what?
Combat spy. I was in Iraq, Afghanistan, that kind of thing, and I would go outside the wire and talk to the locals every day. And so I took the same kind of model and applied it to the show, where I'm trying to find these bits of gold out. And then, and you can probably tell my questions are different. I mean, the movie's there, but I want people to go see the movie, right? So I don't ask specifically about that. I'm asking more about you, about your process, and I'm looking for things to explore with you. So it's been a real success. I mean, we're continuing to grow. I mean, it's ridiculous when I look at all the people that have been on the show, wonderful people like you, super famous people that no one would even heard of, but are fascinating. And it's just been, It's been the blessing of my whole life, except for my daughter. I love her the more, but it's an emotional experience and a ride that I get to share these great conversations with people.
Oh, interesting. I mean, it's funny because the hero of, it's not related to being a combat spy, but the hero of One Flesh is a veteran. In my story, is an army veteran that did tours in Iraq. It's a woman. And so I'm starting to look at doing some research and talking to people south of the border about that. Huh,
yeah. Well, let me know. Glad to help.
Yeah. Always curious to get the real straight from the horse's mouth.
Sure. Yeah. No one's been outside the wire more than me. I mean, I've been out a whole bunch, so I can tell you what that's all about.
But you speak Arabic?
No. But I'm a master at working with interpreters. So I have pretty good comprehension of Arabic. I mean, I speak a little French, I speak a little German, all that kind of stuff, but I'm not a master in any one of them, but I'm really good at connecting with someone else and saying, hey, let's go see these French people. And then I'm going to shut up and let you be French. And I'm not going to try to be French. I'm going to be me and be honest. And we work together as a 3-person conversation to get where I'm going.
No, I see. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine in Iraq being going out of the secure zones. I suppose it was.
Yeah. You leave the secure zone and go out
the green zone and whatnot. Yeah, exactly. Which is tricky because
it is tricky, and a lot of the time, most of the time, we have our own portable secure zone. Like we go out with vehicles and guns, that kind of thing. And so I'm working within this protection bubble for the most part. But I'm still also trying to get away from those guys so I can say, let's talk you and I off the record. And I'm looking for people that want to have conversations. So that's ultimately what I do, you know?
Yeah, that's pretty far out.
Brad.
No, because we keep thinking, like I'm thinking, okay, is the guy's gonna pose as a tourist in Iraq in the middle of the zone? That doesn't work.
I don't pose as anything. I just pose as me. I'm just there to talk, ask questions. I let them know exactly why I'm there. I'm here to find things out. You know, Don't talk to me if you don't want to, but I'm fun to talk to. Let's have drinks. You know how many times in Iraq during Ramadan I've had shots, where they're like, hey, do you want some drinks? And of course you always say yes to that. You're like, yeah, I want drinks. And the next thing you know, you're having this, you're not even getting drunk. You're just having a conversation because you or two guys just had drinks, and that works anywhere in the world. And so I just let them be them and I adapt to where they're at, and they tell me things because I'm not a jerk.
It's funny, I hear you. I lived in Dubai in the Persian Gulf in the late 90s, 96 to 98. And Dubai is pretty safe and secure. And it's like a big shopping mall. But there were a lot of people from Iran and from Afghanistan too, and Taliban too there. And I remember I spoke a few words of Arabic and just going to the market, trying to buy carpets and just hanging out with those guys. And because I loved the Arabic culture, I had read books and, and I loved the art and the poetry of it. And I was just curious. And I remember, the interactions and having a drink or sitting down and just taking the time. I mean, it's the culture too, right?
Yeah.
Which we don't have it up in the West or in the North. We're more fast-paced. And I remember during Ramadan, at one point, a colleague of mine, Arabic, he goes, "Do you want to go to the Coca-Cola factory?" I go, "What's that?" He goes, "Yeah, come." And we were in Sharjah, a suburb of Dubai, and that's where I was teaching. Actually, I was in banking, and we go to this kind of old wall of this old fort, and I see guys like in their bayas or dish dash, like locals, like carrying out bags of stuff into their Range Rovers and souped up SUVs. And we go there, and basically you buy booze. You just buy booze, and it was just like the big traffic. And during Ramadan, it was like the big party. So
it's true. And then one of the things, when you use culture to your advantage, I ask you a question about the English and French Canadian divide, and you can't help but tell me about it because it's such a powerful cultural thing for you guys. And so I now can get in. You're doing all the talking, and then I'm not trying to control. I'm just looking for light like direction. Where do I want you to go with that? And that's the trick to all of this spy stuff, is just to find those things. Look, everybody loves their kids. Everybody hates cancer.
Did you learn that? Did you learn that, or you developed it through experience? We actually learned that. There's a manual for that.
Yeah, no, I learned that through experience. I mean, are there books out there that talk about it? Sure. Did it stick in my head? No, but I went out and I learned, because one of the things that we do on the American side of things, the U.S. side of things, is we try to out Iraq and Iraqi. Like, don't ever use this symbol. Don't ever eat or drink during Ramadan. And so I'll ask him, and I'm like, "Hey, do you mind if I have a drink during Ramadan?" And the guy will be like, "Why would I care if you drink? You're not an Islamic guy, like you're an American. You can drink all the water you want. You're not going to make me mad. It's my job to do Ramadan, not yours." And then you're like, what else should I know about Ramadan? How about that there's a bottle of booze in my desk right now? Would you like some? I mean, literally, that's a conversation I had with the guy. And because I didn't try to be so stoic and like, I must suffer through Ramadan with you, they allow me to be me, and then they get to be them. And that's where the magic happens for me. When I hear them being them, I shut up and I just try to understand where they're at and understand how they put their thoughts together, their goals and how they make decisions.
Yeah, you don't, I hear you. You don't, because then you become two humans talking about the thing, and you're on equal terms in a weird way. You're both talking about Ramadan. You're not trying to act as the Western guy who's super stoic and manages Islamic sensitivities. You're more talking as a human being. It's like, am I okay if I drink? You're cool with that? You're good? And it's like, yeah, sure. There's a distance, and then, you connect.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then also don't know more than that guy about their own culture. Even if you do, you shut the fuck up and let that person be an expert. And if they disagree with you, that's an important cultural thing where this person has a different reality culturally than I've learned in the book. And I'll give you an exact example of this. In Iraq, there's a nuclear power plant that the Israelis blew up. Everybody knows this in the whole world, except for the people right there. Right there, the Iranians blew it up. And you'd be like, no, the Israelis blew it up. I learned to shut up, and I'm like, let me shut up. The Iranians blew this up. When? How? What was it? And they had a completely alternate reality that if I didn't allow them to be smart and know their own area, I would never have found that out. And so I would report that back to the commanders, and they would be like, no, the Israelis blew that up. You're stupid. And I'm like, I'm not stupid. This is what these people think. This is the Iranian influence. And then they started to put it together and go, wow, we're really talking about a different world. They had no idea on how to think through these things. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Oh, completely.
Yeah. Well, listen, I don't want to keep you any longer. I need to go finish watching your movie, but I really appreciate you coming on. Express my my desire to have ER back on the show. We'll set it up.
I'll text him right now. Yeah. Thanks, Pete. No, it was really good for me too. And I think I have your email, so I'll keep in touch.
Please. Yeah, please
and,
do.
I'll follow your podcast. I'll check it out.
Hey, thanks for watching the show. I really appreciate it. Right here, you can subscribe. Please do that. It makes the show grow. Hit that notification bell so you know which incredible guest is coming up next. Down below is the PayPal link. You can put a small subscription in. That is an enormous help. All that money goes right back into the show. And then right up over here are the next episodes you should listen to, curated by yours truly. Thank you so much for watching The Break It Down Show.